with Disability, Divyangjan, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment of Person with Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. इन्होंने किरण मेंटल हेल्थ रिहेबिलिटेशन हेल्पलाइन की शुरुआत की है। ये हेल्पलाइन जो है वो 24 घंटे 7 दिन अवेलेबल रहती है। इसका टोल फ्री नंबर जो है वो 1800599019 ये है। आप अगर कोई भी किसी को भी कोई साइकोलॉजिकल प्रॉब्लम है या डिसेबिलिटी रिलेटेड कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन चाहिए है तो कोई भी इस नंबर पे कांटेक्ट कर सकता है। मुझे बस यही इंफॉर्मेशन देनी थी। थैंक यू सो मच। थैंक यू सो मच सर।
Thank you, madam. Thank you once again. Dear participant, thank you. Next session will be start just immediately. Before that, just I put the attendance sheet on chat box. Afternoon attendance sheet there. Just click on and fill up the forms for afternoon attendance. Just immediately.
Okay, sir.
Then we will start next session by Honorable Resource Person, Mrs. Kirti Sudha Rajput, Madam. Is available here. Yeah. Welcome, madam. Welcome, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Can we start?
Yes, sir. You can start.
Once again, welcome to all participants in today's state level conference on development of play and social skills in children with ASD. Post lunch second session, our respective resource person, Honorable Mrs. Kirti Sudha Rajput, Madam, is available with us. She has completed her Master in Psychology, MPhil in Rehabilitation Psychology from NIMH, NIPID just now. And She has published various research papers. It's a vast experience, various projects, state government, and now she's working as a lecturer in rehabilitation psychology, NIPID, Regional Central, Kolkata. Mrs. Kirti Sudha Madam is very much knowledgeable and experienced from last 10 years. She is working in personal disability and parents. So once again, welcome, madam. And today's topic is evidence-based intervention in children with ASD. Madam, hand over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I start with my topic, my heartfelt thank you to.
Ma'am, your voice is not clear.
Yeah, is it clear now? Is my voice audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you. So before I start with my presentation, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to make this presentation in a wonderful conference here. Special thanks to Dr. Dhana Pandian sir, Mr. Abhijit Rao sir, Mr. Sanjay Kusam sir for approaching me and giving me this opportunity and this topic to talk about. I also thank all the participants to be here. I could see you all are very patient and very active as well. Thank you for your active participation in advance. I thank you in advance, and let us start with my presentation. So I'll be talking about early evidence-based intervention for children with autism spectrum disorder. Now, what is autism spectrum disorder is now well established, and you all being rehabilitation professionals, you are very well aware of it. Even since the beginning of this conference, you have already heard enough of it. So I will not go into details of what is autism, but we will focus more on what is evidence-based intervention means. Okay. So, what is evidence-based? What does it mean by being evidence-based? Evidence-based intervention are the interventions which are supported by high-quality research and are found to be effective. When I say high-quality research, I mean that the researches are conducted following all the ethical and technical considerations under proper guidelines to conduct research, and that's what I mean by high quality research. So when any intervention given is researched extensively and are supported or proven to be effective during this high quality research, would be considered as evidence based research or evidence based intervention. Now, EBI can reduce autism spectrum disorder symptoms and increase their independence, health, and well being, and the quality of life for persons with autism spectrum disorder. Why so? Because these interventions are evidence based, these are proven through high quality research, they are already tested on a given population. So, there is a high possibility that, or there is a high incidence. Yes, please. Okay.
Hello.
There is a
I'm
yes. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Will you please repeat?
break हो गया
Sorry, pardon, please.
No, ma'am, आपकी voice clear है.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mr. Vinod, I couldn't hear you, so I would request whatever you want to say, if you can put it in the chat box, because your voice is not clear to me, so I couldn't hear what you want to say.
your voice break, ma'am.
Okay. Is it so for everybody or is it clear? Maybe,
It's okay, ma'am. Maybe it's network use. You're okay, madam.
okay, okay,
Hear
fine,
properly.
fine. Thank-
Maybe a humming sound. Maybe that.
There is humming sound. Okay, I'll just turn on the fan. Just give me a minute.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So is that humming sound gone now?
It's okay, ma'am.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I was talking about evidence-based intervention. They reduced autism spectrum disorder symptoms in a sense that because they are already well researched on a given population, it is very likely that they are supported in the research and they are actually found useful and effective. In that sense, they reduce autism spectrum disorder symptoms and they increase the independence, health and well-being and quality of life for persons with autism spectrum disorder. Whereas, having said this, we need to remember very well that no intervention is fit for all. For example, if one intervention is evidence based, it does not mean that the same intervention is equally effective to all the people of all various conditions and all range of the whole range of age. No. So when we choose any evidence-based intervention for practice, there are certain points that needs to be considered. Let us see what are those points. So consideration of following questions may aid in evaluating the research available about a specific intervention. For example, who has conducted the research? Now say if I have invented an intervention, if I say that this is a new intervention designed by me and only I am doing the research and I'm saying that my research proves that the intervention is very effective, could be very biased. And this research uh, studying the effectiveness of my own intervention may not be sufficient. So this intervention may not be called as evidence-based intervention until and unless it is also researched and studied by various organizations and institutions where there is no conflict of interest. So it is important that who is conducting the research. For example, if any medicine, any drug is developed by a pharmaceutical company, and if the same pharmaceutical company is conducting the research saying that this medicine is found to be very effective, say on anxiety or depression, then because there is a conflict of interest, because there is a possibility of some bias may occur, so it is not enough if the manufacturer of the medicine itself only is studying the research or conducting the research. So there needs to be other organization who would have to conduct research on that particular intervention, whether it is a medical intervention or by behavioral intervention, etc. Then comes when was the research conducted. So now in 2021, if I want to use an intervention, and if that intervention was last studied in 1970, and after that, that particular intervention is never been studied, then probably recent research on the particular intervention is required. When I say intervention, it because the process of intervention starts with assessment. So even the assessment tool needs to be recently researched and updated. So if we take an example of, with all due respect to the test developers and with all due respect to the senior psychologists, eminent psychologists in the field, I would give this example that, say for example, Binet Kamat test of intelligence or Mullin's intelligence scale for Indian children. These tests have been developed long ago and have not really been exclusively updated since last more than 3 decades. So there are certain questions, say for example, how much paisa are there in 1 rupee, or when it is conversion from feet to centimeter and things like that. Now in children's curriculum, all these questions could be very outdated. Or there are questions like if three I don't exactly remember the terms, but I would just say an example. Like if three chocolates are for 5 paisa, how many chocolates will you get in 50 paisa? Things like that. So, now this concept paisa is outdated for this recent upcoming generation. They may find it the way we feel taka, like uh, 4 टका 8 आने 4 आने in Maharashtra, 4 आने 8 आने is now outdated. The same way, this paisa concept may not be equally comprehended or understood by the the upcoming generation. And so those questions needs to be updated. Those questions need to be modified, for which an research needs to be conducted on the current population. So that is what the significance of when the research was conducted is important and needs to be considered. Now, third point is what scientific procedures were used to ensure the quality of research, whether the informed consent was taken or not, whether the particular research or intervention, experiment about the intervention was conducted purely lab setup, or was it done in a natural setup where the generalizability is more possible. So in what setup or in what kind of procedures were followed to ensure the quality of research and even the generalizability of the findings, that needs to be considered. Then, is the research presented as a systematic review? Well, before going to next, I would like to give you an example of the earlier one regarding ensuring the quality of the research. Now, say for example, if I'm trying to study the auditory inputs or the vocal sound generation in children with autism using a machine learning process. Now, for that, I will need a lab which will be noise free, where only the child will be sitting, and the machine will be established such that to capture the audio or the sound generated by the child. Now there could be certain meaningful sounds which could be in the form of echolalia, or there could be certain infantile sequels or maybe odd or repetitive sounds which could be meaningless. Now for both the things, for few things I need stimulus, and for few things I don't need the stimulus. Now if I collect the data in a soundproof room, and if I say that yes, my particular software actually measures or assesses the language component of the speech and language component in children with autism very well, well, this is a purely lab established finding. Now, if I want to do it in a general setting, for example, if I want to use the software in a clinical setup, it could be very difficult, because in my clinic there could be other sounds going on, which may not be very severe, but there could be other sounds where I could be interacting with the parents, and that interaction could be recorded through the device, and thus the applicability or the generalizability of my research in a closed setup, in in an experimental setup or a lab setup, may not be generalizable in a real life situation. So what scientific procedures and what kind of, my third point, scientific procedure conducting a research for the particular intervention has to be considered. Now, is the research presented as a systematic review? If not, has the research been peer reviewed by qualified researchers? There are certain peer reviewed journals where your research articles are sent to peer reviewers for blind reviewing, and then if those are found to be appropriate, then are being published. There are certain review articles, so which review more than say 5, 6, 10 other researches happening around, and then then a conclusive remarks are made. Now, in both of these are fine to refer, but we need to consider whether it is a review article which we are referring to, or it is a research in itself which is actually peer reviewed by a qualified researcher. Is there sufficient evidence that the intervention is effective? For what type of goals or skills is it effective? And is there evidence that the intervention will be effective for a same age group or diagnostic group? Now, say for example, there is mm, sensory integration. Okay. Now, say, for example, I'm giving, okay, please don't take it literally. I'm just giving an example. Say, for example, there are 5 researchers conducted on the effectiveness of sensory integration for children with autism. Now, first thing I need to see whether these evidences are sufficient or not. If among these 5 researches, the conclusive remarks are varied or are contradictory, then reviewing these 5 researchers would not be enough. And probably I would need to search for more evidence to say whether sensory integration is effective or ineffective or harmful for children with autism. So, if I review certain articles and if there are cohesive or correlating findings which are supporting each other and which are saying that the particular intervention is effective, then the intervention is um, more appropriate to be taken up for use in our setup. But if there are contradictory findings, then we should not rush or we should not hurry to use that intervention as a whole. We may take it up for a research project with the consent from the participating children with autism and their caregivers, but that should not be exclusively used until and unless a proper evidence is built or formed to use those interventions. So, if if there is an intervention, for example, say sensory integration therapy, if it is meant for sensory integration of in children with autism,